This tutorial is for T7, Convert Equations of Parabolas from General to Vertex form for Algebra 2. Okay, so if you're using IXL for this, I want to show you how they explain it, and then I'm going to swap it around a little bit and make it easier for you. So we're going to go through this because it may make sense in your brain to see it this way, but then I'm going to also give you the way that I like to work these problems out. So first, this would just be what you would have in your notes for this problem, or for these types of problems. To complete the square for a quadratic, which would look like x squared plus bx plus c, add and subtract b divided by 2 squared, group the terms, and then factor. So if you had a quadratic that looks like this, you would use that b term, that second term here, the one that's not squared and the one that's not a number by itself, but the coefficient in front of that x, and then you would divide it by 2 and then square it. You're going to add it, but you're also going to subtract it, and when you do that, you're going to combine your like terms. So you're going to have this completed square with your x squared plus bx. You're going to put that here. Then on the outside, you're going to subtract it, and that's going to work with your c. Alright, so what that looks like then is you can clean it up and have x plus, and then your completed square here, plus c minus, and then b divided by 2 squared. It's really weird. There's a lot going on here, so I'm going to show you one time going through it that way, and then I'm going to show you what makes a little bit more sense to me. So either way, you'll get to the right answer. So here's what a problem would look like for this section. The equation of a parabola is y equals x squared minus 2x plus 2. Write the equation in vertex form. So x squared minus 2x plus 2 equals x squared minus 2x plus 2. So we're going to rewrite it like this. Then we're going to add, we're going to have our negative 2 divided by 2 because we took our b term here. And remember that second term is your b term. So it's the one here, like with your x. We're going to add that, and then we're also going to subtract it. But we're going to add it here and then subtract it on the outside. Once you do that, if you come to this side, you could have negative 2 divided by 2 squared. Remember that that squared applies to both, so negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, and positive 2 times positive 2 is positive 4. Any number above itself or divided by itself is 1. So it would be like we're saying x squared minus 2x plus 1, and then if we had minus 1 and plus 2, then it would be a plus 1 outside of here as well. Then once you factor these, you would have x minus 1 squared plus 1. So your final answer would be y equals x minus 1 squared plus 1. If that confused you, don't worry, because I'm going to make it a lot easier for you. So the one thing that I want to tell you about number 2 and 3 before we even start is that you don't need to complete the square for these problems. I just want to show you the process on an easy one. So officially, the answer would be that you don't have to do any kind of completing the square because you could already factor these. You can look at this and see that you need a number that adds together to give you negative 6, multiplies together to give you 9. That magic number would be negative 3. So you could do x minus 3 in parentheses and then squared. And then that's it. That'll get you your answer here. However, I'm going to show you an easier way to do the exact same process that I just showed you in number 1. So let's go through it and complete this square. Even though we don't need it, as you'll see, it cancels out right here. So if we were completing the square for this problem, we would first identify our b. Our b here is the negative 6. So I go ahead and write that out so I don't forget what number we're looking at. Then our formula is our b divided by 2 squared. So remember that squared applies to both. So negative 6 squared is positive 36. 2 negatives multiplied together make a positive. And then 2 squared is 4. So now it just becomes an easy division problem. So 36 divided by 4 is 9. Now that we have this new magic number where we completed the square, we're going to add it to the inside and then subtract it from the outside. Sorry, I pointed to the wrong one. Add it to the inside and subtract it from the outside, right? So I copy down my x squared minus 6x, and then I'm going to add the 9 inside of there, close my parentheses. I had a positive 9 here on the outside, and I'm also going to subtract that 9 here. So once I do that, do you see how it cancels out? Minus 9 plus 9 is going to leave you with a 0. So all you have left is what you have in parentheses. Once you have that, then you can use this magic kind of X puzzle thing here to the right to help you figure that out. So again, if you draw a big X and you say, I need two numbers that add together to give me this middle term, and those same two numbers need to multiply together to give me that C term. So you would write your middle term, your B here, and then your C here. Now that magic number for this is -3. If you take -3 plus -3, you get -6, which is our B. If you take -3 times -3, you get +9, which is C. So our magic term goes inside here, inside the parentheses, and then our square goes outside of the parentheses. So y equals x minus 3 squared would be our final answer. I like to show you how to check your answer, because if you felt like I did all this but I don't know if it's right before I turn in my answer, then all you have to do is FOIL this problem. So over here to the right, I wrote out x minus 3 times x minus 3. FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, last. So x times x is x squared, so those are our first two terms. Then I do our outside terms, so x times -3 is -3x. Our inside terms, -3 times x is -3x. And then our last terms, x times -3 times -3 is +9. Then I can combine my like terms. These two -3x's here combine to give me -6x. So x squared minus 6x plus 9 is exactly what we started with up here. So this is the correct answer because we checked our answer here. Now again, we didn't have to go through the process of completing the square because as you see, it just cancels out the 9 here. But I like this way a lot better than how they do it in number 1. So if you go ahead and you find your number for this, then it's easier to add it inside, subtract it outside, and you don't have to keep copying down all that crazy information in fraction form. So number 3, just like number 2, you don't have to complete the square. You don't need to do it for this problem. We won't do it for problems that don't need it past this one, but I want to show you on an easy problem what it looks like. So the problem, or the equation for this one, is y equals x squared plus 8x plus 16. Now again, if you just looked at this and you said, is there a number that I could add together to give me 8 and multiply together to give me 16, this does have a perfect square. So 4 could be your magic number here. So 4 plus 4 gives me 8, my B term, and 4 times 4 gives me 16, my C term. So I do not need to complete the square, but we're going to do it as an extra step so you can see this easier way to do it. You can see how it cancels out here, so it was an unnecessary step. I just wanted to show you an easier way to complete the square for these. So if we were to complete the square, we identify our B term as 8. 8 divided by 2 squared. So 8 squared is 64. 2 squared is 4. 64 divided by 4 is 16. Again, in the example number 1, they have you writing this out over and over. I like to go ahead and get my whole number, and then it's easier to work with. So now that I know that my completed square is 16, then I rewrite this with just the first part, and then I add 16 to it. Then I have my outside part, positive 16, and I subtract 16 from it. So this cancels out, letting me know that this whole step was extra. And then now I have this perfect square, this perfect quadratic that I can work with. So again, I would look at this and see what number two numbers could I add together to get 8 and multiply together to get 16. We said that was 4. So x plus 4 squared would be our answer to y. Again, if you want to check it, you can go back up and FOIL it. So x plus 4 times x plus 4, you would multiply first, outer, inner, last to check your answer. All right, so past that, we're only going to use our completing the square process if we need to use it. All right, so number 4. The equation of a parabola is y equals x squared minus 2x plus 1. Write the equation in vertex form. So I rewrote it down here. So x squared minus 2x plus 1. And then I was checking to see if I even need to complete the square. So I'm going to write out this kind of magic x puzzle here. What number can I add together to give me this b term? And that same number can be multiplied to give me that c term. So that magic number is -1, because -1 plus -1 is -2. But -1 times -1 is +1. So our magic number here goes inside the parentheses, and then the square goes here. If I wanted to check my answer, again, I did it for you here. How to check your answer is FOIL. So you multiply the first, then the outer, then the inner, then the last. And we would get back to our original part here. So, but this one we didn't have to complete the square, and we didn't do that extra because it was unnecessary. Number 5, I quit writing out the whole word problem and just gave you the bare bones. Y equals x squared minus 8x plus 16. So here I'm going to check, is there a magic number that will work here? So I need it to add together to give me -8 and multiply together to give me positive 16. The magic number there is -4. So I just rewrite that inside parentheses, y equals x minus 4 squared. One more page of examples for you on this section, and that's it. So number 6, y equals x squared plus 4x plus 8. So this one, there isn't a perfect square that we can use. So we have to do that formula. So we take our b, which was 4, divide by 2 squared. So 4 squared is 16, 2 squared is 4, 16 divided by 4 is 4. So again, my way of doing this is you go ahead and find this number and plug that in instead of rewriting this whole complicated fraction over and over. So I take the first two parts of that, the x squared plus 4x, and I copy it down here. Then inside that parentheses, I add my 4 to that. So that's the first step. So I just copied down this part and added 4 to that, right? Then outside the parentheses, the first thing I do, since I added the 4 inside, I'm going to subtract 4 on the outside. So you can write them side by side with that parentheses separating them, so that way you know you've got it correct. So add 4 to the first two terms, subtract 4 from the C. Now that I've rewritten it like that, I just deal with this tiny math problem here. -4 plus 8 is +4. And then now the only thing I have to factor is the part that's in the parentheses. So I'm looking for that magic number that when added together gives me a 4, when multiplied together gives me a 4, and that's 2. So x plus 2 squared, and then I just bring down my c, which was +4. Number 7, y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9. I already see that there's a magic number that we can find that would add together to give me 6, multiply together to give me 9. That magic number is 3. So x plus 3 squared is equal to y. So that was an easy one. Number 8, x equals y squared minus 2y minus 6. This is our first one that was x equals, but we solve it the exact same way. Just make sure that you write down your x where it belongs and your y where it belongs, and don't get those flip-flopped as you are writing out your equations. So first I need to identify my b, which is -2, divided by 2 squared. -2 squared is 4. 2 squared is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now I copy down. I'm going to put in parentheses again so you can kind of see where this is coming from. So these first two terms, I add 1 to those first two terms. Then I subtract 1 from that c on the outside. So this one here, this magic number here, it gets added to the first two terms and subtracted from that third term, that c. Once I do that, I have this little math problem hanging out on the end, so -7. Then I just have to factor this. So y squared minus 2y plus 1. When factored, -1 is what I need in parentheses. So y minus 1 squared minus 7. Number 9, y equals x squared minus 10x plus 16. So I find my b, -10 divided by 2 squared. 100 divided by 4 is 25. So x squared minus 10x plus 25 minus 25 plus 16. I do this small little math problem on the end. Then I factor what's inside the parentheses. The magic number when added together will give me -10, and when multiplied together will give me positive 25 is -5. So y equals, in parentheses, x minus 5 squared, and then outside I just brought down my c value, which is -9. Two more sample problems. Number 10, x equals y squared minus 6y plus 9. This is another one where it's an x equals, so make sure you get all your x's and y's in the right place. It already has a perfect square, so I know that -3, when added together, will give me -6, and when multiplied by itself will give me 9. So y minus 3 squared is my answer to this one. Last one, number 11, y equals x squared minus 2x plus 3. Doesn't have a perfect square, so I take my b value, divide it by 2, and square it. So -2 squared is 4. 2 squared is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I add 1 to my first two values, and I subtract 1 from my c value. -1 plus 3 is 2. I factor what's inside parentheses. The magic number that will make this happen is -1. So x minus 1 squared plus 2 is the answer to y for number 11. And that's it.